Hey guys, we're finally ready to get started making our Vino Italiano wine kit. This is the moment you've been waiting for, so let's dive in. Before we get started though, we need to talk about something that is very, very important. We're going to be taking some grape juice concentrate, adding water to it, and turning that into wine. That being said, the quality of your water has a lot to do with the final outcome in your wine. If you know that your water isn't that great, you can always opt to use bottled water or filtered water. I use filtered water even though the water in my area is good. You might say then, why bother? Why bother filtering the water if you have good water? Well, this is what my whole house water filter looks like when it is brand new. 3 months later, it looks like this. And even though I have good water, this is what happens in 3 months. So just like with cooking, when you're making wine, the quality of the ingredients that goes in to making wine will dramatically impact the end product. Alright, with that said, let's get started. Hello YouTube, it's Sicilian Prince here, and we're going to get started making our Vino Italiano wine kit today. What I have is my wine kit, the primary fermenter, which is a plastic bucket that I've cleaned and sanitized. We have our instructions. We have our bentonite solution, or a powder that we're going to make into a solution, a winemaker's yeast, a hydrometer. Now this hydrometer here has a scale on the side, and we can see that it's going to tell us the percentage of potential alcohol that we'll have in the wine when it's finished. The instructions give you detailed information on the readings that you'll need to get when you are making wine from this kit. We're going to be following these instructions. I would recommend you read them, but we are also going to deviate from them because we're going to be making this 6-gallon kit to only 5 gallons to make a much better wine. One of the things I would recommend you do is when you make the cleansing solution, save an old food grade bucket and save your cleansing solution here, because you're going to need to cleanse things over and over again. There's always something that you've forgotten to cleanse or clean or want to re-clean, so I saved the solution that I've made with the Be Bright and this bucket that used to have margarita mixer in it, so it's good for me. Other thing I'd like to recommend to you is that if your fermenter has a spigot on the bottom, now would be a good time to make sure it's shut off, because if you accidentally leave that open, your grape juice is going to spill all over the floor, which is not a good thing. So I would definitely make sure you leave that open. I mean closed, so it's not open. Okay, verify that it's closed. The other thing that I do, here I'll try to show you here, is I bend the corners of the box like that, and I put the grape juice cap over the top, and it makes it much easier to deal with the juice when it's in this square box when we pour it in. It's easier to hold that way. So, that's what I do. I bend the corners down. The Wine Expert kits have a notch, actually, that the top goes in. This kit doesn't have that, so I kind of make it myself like that. I bend the two corners in so that the grape juice could come out of the bag very easily. Alright, so what I've done first is I filled the bottom of my primary fermenter with some warm water. And I am now tearing the bentonite packet open. And what I'm going to be doing is sprinkling this in and stirring it vigorously. Now, different kits have different types of bentonite, and some kits have one that you would soak in water first and use a little whisk in, like I say, a cup of hot water and allow it to sit there for a little while, like the Mosty kits. This particular kit has this bentonite, and according to the directions, we're going to take the spoon and we're going to sprinkle it, but as we're sprinkling it, we're going to stir it. Now, we don't want to just dump the whole thing in. We want to dissolve it in the water little by little as we're stirring, because we don't want a clump of bentonite at the bottom. We want to constitute it with the water here as little as we can at a time to make sure that it's kind of suspended as we're stirring it pretty vigorously. Okay, now that's all of it. I'm going to continue to stir and get that pretty well mixed up. And we have it. So that's the first part. Notice I didn't put a whole lot of water in here, just enough to get this going. Alright. The next part is I'm going to take the cap off the top of the wine juice. This is a device over here that can do that. I've also used pliers before, like the ratcheting pliers, to take the top off of the wine juice. So here we are. I'm going to put that over the end like that and pry it off. Let me position that so you can see what's going on when I pour it in. Now I'm going to pick this up and start to pour it in slowly. Now, the wine juice is kind of, grape juice is kind of thick because it's very concentrated. We're going to be adding water to this to get it to be reconstituted. You can see how holding the box is a lot easier than holding the bag. There we go. One of the things you'll also notice, I got a red towel to put underneath this to work on, because obviously you run the risk of making a mess. So get an old red towel. Highly recommended. Alright, so this is our bag. And you can see that the bag still has some leftover grape juice inside. So what I'm going to be doing is filling that up with some water. So what I've got here is I have filled this bag up with some water, and I'm going to basically swash it around a little bit and pour some water, basically rinsing out the inside of the bag. And I'm going to use this bag over and over again to put more and more water in as we fill it up. Now, one of the things I want to show you here is the bucket has a lip, like right here, this lip. And if you fill it up to that lip, you'll have 6 gallons. On the side of the bucket, you'll see that this is the 5-gallon mark. So the 5-gallon mark isn't all the way up to this lip, it's down here. Okay? So we're going to aim for that 5-gallon mark. Okay? Let's keep going. Okay. Fill up some more water. And again, I keep using the same bag that it came in because I'm rinsing the water, the leftover grape juice with water out of the bag to add it to this. And we're aiming again for that 5-gallon mark. Here we go. And we're at about a little bit over 4 gallons. It's a little bit more. Then we're going to stir this baby up. Okay, a little over 4.5 gallons, a little bit more. And you pour it. You see it starts to splash a little bit, so be careful. Not something you want to do on white carpet. And you don't want to be wearing your best clothes. Oh, almost there. So, what do we got? A bunch of wine juice. If we look at the side, we're up to that 5-gallon mark roughly. Try to focus that a little bit better for you. 5-gallon mark. Okay? Now, here's a very, very important part of this whole process that you have to do. The wine juice, or the grape juice I should say, it's not wine yet, is very thick. The water is thin compared to the grape juice. So in order to do this accurately, you're going to need to stir this up really, really, really well. From what I understand, a big mistake that people make when they first start making wine is they don't stir very well. And the consistency is not the same throughout the whole juice solution. So you want to stir this very, 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 very well. Make sure that you have it well mixed and reconstituted correctly. Okay, this is my spoon. Okay, and that is mixed to 5 gallons. Okay, we're going to let that calm down just a little bit. And we're going to take our hydrometer and put it in. And you're going to see that it's floating, right? There you go. Move this aside so you can see a little bit better. Hopefully. Now, a lot of people would say don't put the hydrometer directly in here because you're not going to get the most accurate reading. You should pick it up and pick it up and put it in a beaker or something like that to get an accurate reading because you're looking at it straight on. But I mean, really, how accurate do you need to be? Come in here. You see the scale on the side? Okay. You have 1.1 and 1.90. Let's look at where that is. A little bit, it's about 1.1 if you look at it. 1.1. 1.1 will give us, if you look at the scale here, 1.1 will give us someplace 10.1. It says here, roughly 14%, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, between 13 and 14%. 13.5% alcohol. That's if we ferment to 1.0. If we ferment more than that, which I'm going to, it's going to be a little bit higher than that. So that's basically what we're looking for. Just a little bit more concentrated juice with these Vino Italiano kits. Alright. Alright, now we have our winemaker's yeast. We're going to rip the top off, and we are going to sprinkle it over the top of our juice that we've mixed. Now, one of the things that's important here is that the juice be around 70 to 75 degrees, ideally 75 degrees, when you put the, and it's Fahrenheit, when you put the yeast in. Winemakers term this pitching the yeast, okay? Just taking your yeast and putting it in. It's a special winemaker's yeast, and you cannot use the same kind of yeast that you would use to make bread. This wine yeast will survive higher alcohol content. Okay, so which is what we want with wine, to have a higher alcohol content as compared to what the yeast that would make bread would survive in. So that's what we do. All we do is sprinkle it in. Some people say you should stir it in. A wine expert says just pour it on top. The yeast know what they're doing. Alright, so that's what we're going to do, is just leave it on top just like that. And I have my sanitized lid, which I've cleaned thoroughly. As with everything with winemaking, cleaning is very important. Now, some people say you shouldn't snap the lid on. Just leave it on top. I believe in snapping the lid on. So that's what I'm going to do. Snap my lid on like that. Because any germs, anything, I want to try to keep out. Then the next thing I would do is have my airlock, which I have here. Now the airlock is basically a plastic thing that comes in a couple of different pieces. Here. Okay. This piece has holes in it. It goes inside that. And you would fill this with water. Some people put vodka in to fill it. Other people put the sulfite solution. And you would put this in that grommet to make a seal. Now, what I'm doing here I really shouldn't be doing. What I normally would recommend doing is putting this on the top with this not over the wine. And the reason for that is if you push too hard, that grommet could go falling off into the wine, which is, you don't want that to happen. So what you would normally do is put the edge of this over the bucket. Put this in first before snapping it on. Sometimes you take chances, live on the edge. And then what I would do is put this in a place where it can sit for, it's going to need to be in here for a little while that's fermenting, a couple days. And we're going to take a measurement again in a few days to see how the fermentation process is coming along. Also, if we look at this right here, this airlock, what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing bubbles as it ferments. That's because when the yeast eats the sugar, it's going to start bubbling. It's not going to do it now, it's going to do it in a couple of days. It's going to start bubbling and it's going to be giving off CO2. Okay? And that's what you're going to see bubbling out of there. So, here we have our hydrometer. And right now, we're, I guess, roughly around this area. And as it ferments, it's going to go in this direction. Eventually, we're going to be transferring it to a Carboy glass jug. And it's going to be doing its secondary fermentation at that point. But for now, this is all we need to do. We'll check back again in a few days, see how we're going. And that's it. You just got started making wine. Congratulations. It's a lot of fun. Alright, check back in a little bit, and next installment should be showing you the next phase. Take care. Here's a sneak preview. We're just looking at the airlock the next day, and you're seeing these bubbles happening here. That's evidence that our fermentation is started. So there you have it. Fermentertainment at its finest. Hey, thanks for coming by and viewing my video on getting started with the Vino Italiano wine kit. Stay tuned for the next installment where we will be transferring the wine from that plastic bucket to our secondary fermenter, which will be the glass jug called a Carboy. Please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that update, and check out my website at www.cookingitalianrecipes.com. Thanks, take care.